welcome back to Shannon's Plants Planting Time. How are you today? Today we are going to talk about tips on watering your plants. And we have a little visitor here today. This is Dupree. Hey, hey. Hey, hey. You're going to give Mommy kisses instead. Hey, hey. Hey. She's so cute. She's so cute. See her little face? She's so ugly, she's cute. Anyway, alright, back to the plants. Like I said, today we're going to talk about how to water your plants. This was something I struggled with a lot whenever I first started with my plant collection. I had only had experience pretty much with outdoor plants, and here in the hot south we have to water them pretty much twice a day if they're outside. So you can guess that I was very confused when I first started collecting houseplants. I had maybe had like a peace lily before that, and if you know anything about peace lilies, they are definitely water loving plants, so I didn't have a real good gauge as to how to water houseplants and keep them happy water wise. So a couple of things I want to talk to you about. Plants need water. This gives them the support of their stems and leaves. When they uptake the water, it absorbs into the cells and gives them structure. And while it doesn't only give them structure, it also helps them uptake oxygen, which they need, desperately, obviously, to live. So, they, sorry, my dog is loving this. I guess she's going to stay for the whole video because she's just sitting in my lap letting me rub her. She doesn't sit still normally. What you doing, Pre-Pre? Oh, that's your baby. That's your baby. When she kisses me, she bites my lips. But anyway, when you water your plants too much, which is what I did in the beginning, it prevents the plant from being able to breathe. And therefore, you slowly suffocate your plant. And it can make it susceptible to a lot of diseases, and especially root rot, which is what a lot of my plants died from in the beginning, was root rot. And I would always get that telltale sign of that older growth turning yellow and drooping, and it would be drooping although I knew I'd watered it. I would be like, darn, I've done it again. Even though I got a moisture meter, which I highly suggest to people who are new to houseplants. Moisture meters are a good thing, and it really helped me out in the beginning. But I would not believe the moisture meter, or I don't know why I was convinced the plants needed more water than they actually do, but I was convinced that they needed more water. Plus, I thought at first, I was like, my house must be too humid, because I was like, I don't know why my plants aren't drying out. It would freak me out, and I would be like, oh, they have to need water. And now I've realized that most indoor plants only need watering about once every 2 weeks, really, 1 week to 2 weeks. Mine normally run on about a 2-week schedule, most of them. Now that's not my calathea, my uh, peace lily, my ferns, stuff like that that need water more often than every 2 weeks. But anyway, now we're going to get into the tips. Aren't we pretty? Yes. Yes, I love you too. Alright. Tip number 1. The pot matters. The type of pot you have makes a big difference on how much you're going to water your plants. If you have a ceramic pot, it tends to hold more water. So plants that like to stay on the dry side, you probably want to avoid putting them in ceramic pots because they tend to hold moisture longer than other kinds of pots. Like terracotta tend to dry out, and you will actually have to water those plants more frequently. So say like my plants that like a lot of water, like my calathea, I have some in ceramic pots. My snake plants and sansevieria I try to keep in terracotta pots. My Hoya I try to keep in terracotta pots. Also, you need to have the right size pot for the plant, because if you have a pot that has a plant that is root bound, then you're going to water that plant, and the water is just going to go through, and the plant is not going to get any water. So the pot definitely matters. It needs to have drainage holes, and it needs to have, well, this is left up to you. I try to put saucers under all my pots. I'm not saying I have them under all of my pots, because sometimes I would rather spend my money on plants than, saucers, and some are in nursery pots, and some are in recycled water bottles. So, just make sure if you do have a saucer underneath your pot, that when you water, you go back 10 minutes later and you empty that saucer. You might hear that again in this video. Tip number 2, different plants have different watering needs. And what I do is when I get a plant that I'm unfamiliar with or that I haven't taken care of before, I Google it and see what the water needs are. Because I've learned that those little cards or little things that come in plants are not always correct. Let me give you an example. When I got my first Phalaenopsis orchid, it told me to water it with an ice cube a week. That could not be more wrong for me and my Phalaenopsis. I have learned that 1, the ice cube shocks the plant and is not good for the roots, and 2, it is not enough water. When you water an orchid, you need to water it just like another plant, thoroughly through to where it drains through. And I have also found that not only would an ice cube not be nearly enough, I have to water my orchids about every 3 to 4 days, because that's just how much water they take. So, oh, she's shedding. Anyway, like I said, so I Google the plants and find out, really, and I look at a couple of different spots to where I get a consensus, because, things can be wrong. I could be wrong. What happens in my house might not happen in your house. So, because we have different conditions, we live in different areas, we have different relative humidity. I have humidifiers going. Humidifiers definitely affect how much you're going to water your plants. So, anyway, but like my Hoya like to dry out and stay on the drier side. They definitely like to dry almost completely out between waterings. My calathea like to be kept moist constantly, and my succulents and cacti like to be really dry. So you need to know your plant's needs because different plants have different needs. So another thing, sorry, she's distracting me. Another thing is I don't suggest a water schedule. I do not have my plants on a water schedule, and we are going to lose the battery here, so we are going to stop. We'll be back. Okay, I'm back without the dog, so hopefully I can concentrate a little bit better. But I think what I was saying was that you need to check your soil. Once you get a little experience behind you, or if you just prefer, you can use your finger or a bamboo stick, or like a chopstick, or suggest a moisture meter, especially in the beginning, because I really relied on that heavily. So, anyway, tip number 3, water the soil and not the leaves. There are some leaves that absolutely do not like water on them, like what comes to mind is African violet. You forgot to bottom water those. If you don't know what bottom watering is, it's when you set your container in a vessel of water and let it absorb the water up through the roots from the bottom. So that is an alternative to watering on top, and some people highly suggest it because it cuts down on things like fungus gnats and stuff like that. So you might want to consider bottom watering. From the beginning, it helps with not overwatering too. So that's a alternative to watering from the top. But water the soil and not the leaves. This helps prevent bacterial infections, fungal infections, and other health issues. Just take the can and water around the soil, getting it evenly moist. Tip number 4, dump any excess water. When you water from the top and it drains through like it should, if you're watering appropriately, about 10 minutes later you should come back and make sure you empty the saucers underneath your pot, because if it sits in that water it can lead to root rot, and plants do not like to sit in wet. It'll just lead to root rot. So make sure you're dumping your saucers. Tip number 5, water thoroughly and evenly. Plants' root systems mimic the foliage. So that's a good way to decide, where you need to water. And make sure you water evenly on both sides. Don't get in the habit of just quickly watering on one side, because this can lead to the plant leaning toward the side that is watered and only growing on that side. Or it can actually cause root rot, because those roots that are not getting watered can actually dry up, and then when you water them again, it can cause too much water in the roots because they're dried up and shriveled, and it can cause root rot. So you need to make sure you're watering evenly around the plant. And I try to water slowly. My watering can waters very slowly, and I think this is better. It allows for more absorption and more even, watering around. So tip number 6, water needs change with the seasons. In winter, many plants go into dormancy and do not need as much water as they do in the summer. So indoor temperature also affects watering needs, and so do humidifiers. So basically learning about your plant's native conditions, like whether they're epiphytic and grow on rocks and stuff like this. If you learn about where they came from and how they grow in nature, can tell you a lot about their watering needs. So I try to always look up where the plant is from, how it grows in nature. This can also help you with lighting conditions and stuff like that. So don't worry about if you accidentally over or underwater your plant one time. Most plants are resilient, and with a lot of care, they can, pop back from that. But don't make it a habit to over or underwater. It's just not good for the plant. So anyway, that's the 6 tips I have for you. It went a lot quicker without the dog in my lap. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please follow me on Instagram at ShannonCollier26. We're doing a giveaway. And I'm under the gun to finish this video quickly because my battery is dying again. So anyway, please follow me on Instagram and enter the Hoya giveaway. And other than that, I hope to see you in the next houseplant video. Bye!